It all actually started with the introduction of the television as a common household item for the entire family to enjoy. In the 1950s, only about 15% of American households owned a television. But by the year 1960, 85% of people in the United States had at least one television in their home, some owning multiple. The television was introduced in the early 1950s. Operation Mockingbird was introduced in the early 1950s. Operation Mockingbird, the CIA program designed to shape America's perception of reality through media, began at the exact same time that the television was being commodified as a normal household item. The two events line up perfectly. Do you get it? The entire purpose of the television is to lie to you. And by 1960, almost every home in America owned a television, and they could pump their propaganda directly into your living room, influencing every American family. In the beginning, there were only really three major television networks: ABC, NBC, and CBS, all of which were relatively homogenous in their presentation style, similar in the way they depicted the world, depicted American culture, depicted American society, and the relative value system they conveyed was pretty identical. Big smiles and continuous messages that all is well in America. Having three networks creates a perception of choice, nuance, discussion, and disagreement. But that's almost never what you got with the big three, and still really don't get today.
This is one, though, that I think is fascinating.
Yeah.
Where's television? And it's Top Chef. I mean, intelligence style movie, helps with the recruiting, things like that. Oh, look how important we are, image building, but Top Chef? What the hell?
They don't care. They go into every single thing. What's his name? The head of the CIA at the time, with the glasses and the with a P in his name. Not Pompeo.
Panetta.
Leon Panetta, right. Panetta has this. He's in the show. There he is. It's the head of the CIA. He's in the goddamn reality show. I mean, this is going too far. They tried to expand into reality shows on TV with this one, and I think they realized themselves that they had gone too far.
At first, the television was advertised as a way for us to bond as a family and spend time together. This was supposed to be a social activity, and the television was actually supposed to hide away and disappear into the background of the living room. Because why would you want the television on all the time? That would be obnoxious, right? Just another piece of wooden furniture to place your whiskey glass. Eventually, people would buy an extra television for their home so that their children could watch separate programming, alone, without supervision. This allowed networks and corporations to push more direct propaganda to younger generations. They could advertise things like games, toys, fashion, yes, but they could also push more abstract things like ideologies, lusts, desires, and fears. It could teach the youth that they lack things, that they're inferior. The television could expose the youth to a brand new world of things to crave. And now with the youth being sent out into the world with all this insecurity and confusion, it made them way more likely that they'd want to follow popular culture and buy things to fit in. This sense of lack, inferiority, and confusion would feed the economy, sure, but it would also create a dependency on the system, a dependency on pop culture, a dependency on corporations. Speaking of dependency, the television turned out to be extremely addictive, by the way.
Like I said to you, if you look at Nat Geo, the National Geographic Channel, Nat Geo was one of the leading publications that was filled with spooks in the 1940s and 50s because they were allowed to penetrate behind nation states with cameras on these nature adventures. So Nat Geo, what's that?
That makes total sense.
Yeah, no, they were able to go into different countries with cameras. And National Geographic now has a TV station called Nat Geo, and it's equally as penetrated by the CIA. There's a guy named Cassio there, Michael Cassio, whose parents were CIA, and he's an executive producer at Nat Geo, usually dealing with any JFK assassination documentary that Nat Geo ever runs. Michael Cassio will be the executive producer on those. They tightly control these messages and have their own people buried inside of these TV networks, National Geographic in particular.
Before television created this new era of advertising, demographics didn't really exist. At least people didn't really think much in terms of demographics. Before, teens weren't really considered part of the market, but now teens are being coerced into spending their disposable income on fashionable items. And children could pressure their families, beg their parents to buy them toys and games. This was the beginning of the individual's separation from culture, from community, and the beginning of a new era of popular culture that's designed to entertain us, keep us stupid, and blindly following what's popular. Being addicted to your screen is bad enough. We need to let go of our addictions to our screens. But television is the worst one. Loud, blunt messaging, ranted and chanted at you by brain-dead anchors and television personalities. Or now you have your moral and social standards being dictated to you by useless reality stars. Our perception of reality is totally because of the way they frame programming like this. A lot of your favorite artists are not even artists. They're just brand personalities. They're the face of a product. I love a lot of popular culture and I love a lot of popular art. I'm not trying to vilify all entertainment or belittle anyone for liking a movie or a TV show or anything. But I hate the way that our society lifts popular art up to meteoric heights and worships the pop artists like they're gods. Even the way people rage and argue over different celebrities and works of fiction or film franchises. People choose sides and argue over who's a better singer, who's a better actor. Meanwhile, everything you're seeing and hearing is fake.
The current people are involved, current players in the game. The Soderberghs are involved, the real filmmakers today, the Matt Damons, the Soderberghs, the people like Scott Burns. Look at Scott Burns currently just finished a film on CIA torture. You know, I mean, he's directing a film on CIA. I mean, all of his stuff that he does, Burns, is regarding Central Intelligence Agency. So there's now an institute down there under the guidelines of the USC Film School that's being funded by Jeff Skoll to create these movies, not unlike what was done in 1952. The reason I'm not criticizing them for today, it's been done since 1949. It's just the sides have switched. Instead of John Wayne, it's Ben Affleck. You know what I mean? Instead of John Ford, it's Steven Soderbergh. You know, it makes sense. And now they're in bed with these guys. So it's putting the rest of the country in a really precarious position. Because when John Ford and Cecil B. DeMille and John Huston and these guys did it, it had a meaning in a Cold War to put out pro-American stuff.
Sure.
Right?
It was pointed out. Now it's pointed in.
Now it's pointed in. And that's scary. That's scary. I know that Tom Hanks was plucked out of obscurity at the beginning. They tend to take people who, like Will Smith, who come from other operations, and which sort of Scientology, to be honest with you. I mean, they do the same thing with their people, but they don't have the internal power to make Tom Cruise Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise was Tom Cruise before he went to Scientology. What the CIA is doing is making Tom Cruises from scratch, you know. Yeah,
now, you said they plucked Will Smith out of something else. What was that other thing again?
Well, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. He was a rapper before the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I mean, you know, he has no television experience whatsoever, you know, and then he becomes the greatest actor of science fiction films in the history of American cinema. And now what are we looking at right now? We're on the brink of a UFO report that's about to come out. Chase Brandon, when he left Hollywood, began to write books on UFOs and saying that the CIA has all these secret files on UFOs. That was 10 years ago. Now we're on the brink of UFO reports coming out. And who is the number one actor in the world when it comes to flying saucers and UFOs? Will Smith. So, look, I mean, he could have made any kind of movie, I guess. You know what I mean? I guess maybe he made an Ali movie once, but he's known for incredible, successful science fiction films.
People grow up obsessed with celebrities living artificial lives and portraying engineered personalities that are just designed to keep you infatuated with them and infatuated with your screen. It's hard to know how growing up in that environment affects us into our adulthood. The pop culture world, the celebrity world, has no connection to reality. It's completely devoid of character, devoid of principle, devoid of credibility and honesty. Yet people look to celebrities like they're the social and moral leaders of our society. Yes, this is all to serve their corporate overlords and make endless money for their brand. But the things that they say, the ideas that they push, it's all designed to perpetuate that same propaganda that was started in the 1950s, just updated for the new generation. The CIA directly influences and controls lots of celebrities and uses them to push lies on us.
These guys are brought in as technical consultants on film. Rich Klein is one of them. And they bring in ex-CIA guys to, quote unquote, consult on films like Parkland by Peter Landsman and, you know, anti-conspiracy movies that they want to put out there to have CIA influence. They're literally in the credits now. They're in the credits.
What about the use of celebrities in clandestine operations? Like,
well, I mean, the
Belichick's
one that
ring.
comes to mind the quickest is Mo Berg, the catcher for the Tigers, who went over to, even before the creation of the CIA, was spying on the Japanese during the Japanese-American baseball off-season series that they used to go on every year. Mo Berg was I guess, OSS back then, and he had a camera, and he went on the rooftop. He photographed military installations of the Japanese and was a baseball catcher for the Tigers.
Wow.
First one that comes to mind. I mean, there are others.
Operation Mockingbird itself only really operated between the 1950s and 60s during the height of the Cold War, and it was likely founded under President Harry S. Truman. Operation Mockingbird originally started off by trying to coerce a series of journalists. Multiple high-profile reporters were coerced into pushing CIA-designed propaganda, often without any idea that they were being used that way. The CIA would find various ways to feed bad information and propaganda to these reporters as if it were fact. The effect was that these high-profile journalists would author sincere reports about these things, believing that they're reporting on the truth. And that's how the CIA originally got their propaganda fed through reliable sources. Eventually, they would just opt to create their own sources. They would just create their own reporters, their own celebrities, their own networks, their own programs. Bad information like this is still fed to us through the media today by journalists, communicators, personalities, celebrities.
The reality of it is they want to control the message and still be players in this game, and have a new batch of kids. They've switched sides. Now it's the left that they're in bed with. The left turned against them in the 70s and 80s. They became, the 3 days of the Condor people would not cooperate. Now you've got the left cooperating with them. So the sides have switched. They're now, I believe, going after the Trumpsters and the right wing internally. There is no more foreign enemy that they're going after. That's the scary part to bring this up to today, Eric. They're now going after American citizens with these movies, with these attacks, with this stuff on TV, and now it's become an internal battle. They're not allowed by their own doctrine to be involved in anything domestic in the United States. Not that the FBI needs any help, but the CIA is not allowed to be doing this, whatever they're doing domestically. And they're clearly up to something here domestically with these films, like getting back to Contagion. I mean, this thing's got the fingerprints of intelligence all over it.
Isn't it like the perfect situation, though, if you think about it, because the left already dominated Hollywood. Mm-hmm. So now they have almost perfect harmony because you've already got the culture of people controlling culture and them. So they're so deeply embedded. It's not like they have to be sneaky about it.
After 9/11, they put together a group of directors like they did in 1952 with the militant liberty. They put together, after 9/11, they put together a group of screenwriters, directors, and producers, and they took them down to USC, and they funded the operation to come up with scenarios for terrorist attacks and all kinds of different terrorist situations. And I believe out of that school, which is now funded by Jeff Skoll, the owner of Participant Media, the guy who created eBay, he's a Canadian. He's now funded all of these CIA-themed movies out of Participant Media. He funds a USC offshoot involving message movies, climate change movies, anti-Soviet movies, anti-Putin movies. He's got an entire school down there under USC Film School that's involved with the CIA and himself, Jeff Skoll. And he's the producer on Contagion, by the way, is the reason I mentioned Jeff Skoll.
The Motion Picture Production Code, or the Hays Code, kept films fairly wholesome for a good long time. It kept films pretty politically inoffensive for a good long time, until Hollywood evolved along with television and started challenging the sensibilities of the code more and more with the decisions they were making. Hollywood kept breaking the rules more and more, dwindling down the public's sensibilities for offense. Eventually, everyone just got tired of fighting it and got used to the new kinds of material that Hollywood was producing. Eventually, the Motion Picture Production Code was ultimately discarded in 1968, allowing Hollywood to make the raunchy, exciting content that we all grew up loving. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll become much more tolerated and normal in film. All those taboo, risque subjects that Hollywood was never allowed to explore are no longer restricted. It took a long time. The change wasn't overnight. There was always pushback. There would always be these coalitions of moms demanding better in media. Yet, the trend continued, and people continued to care less and less about the morality depicted in media. But getting rid of the Hays Code allowed something very nefarious to fester in the entertainment industry. Eventually, films, along with television, would be used to demoralize the population. Our concepts of family and community have been eroded by modern media. We've been separated from each other and ourselves. We've completely forgotten what's important in life. We've completely forgotten to appreciate the true beauty in life. Fast forward to the social media age, people are so obsessed with their screens now, so obsessed with celebrities, media, movies, and music. People are just so deeply entrenched in popular culture. We've replaced our love for each other, our love for our tribe, our community, our family, ourselves, with a love for celebrity, a love for glitz and glamour, a love for Hollywood, a love for a lie, a love for cheap thrills, and self-destruction. We allow ourselves to be transfixed with our screens and immersed with an artificial reality that does not serve us. It is a lie. It's a weapon that is used against us. Popular culture entertainment is not for us. It's against us. We're just scrolling all day, chasing that next dopamine high. And we're kept transfixed and addicted to social media through our love for ourselves as well. The entire point of this propaganda that we consume, the entire point of engineering the entertainment industry this way, is to lift the individual up above the community, to separate us and divide us from each other, from our families and our tribes, to separate us from our support networks and to make us dependent on the system, to have us constantly chasing what's new, what's shiny, what's popular. They want us to look at celebrities as our icons. They want us to look up to celebrities as if they're our leaders. The individual has become more important than the family and the community. Our individual identities have become king over all else. Narcissism is the new belief system. Self-worship is the new religion. And celebrities are the new icons. Celebrities have become the gods, and it's absolutely terrifying. The information that we hear on the news is supposed to keep us informed. We use that information to decide how to vote. We make important decisions in our life based on things that we hear in the media. But how can you make informed decisions when all the information you're hearing is propaganda? How can you truly have democracy when all the information is lies? The idea of democracy and a free society under this paradigm is a joke. If all of the decisions we're making are based on lies and propaganda, how can we really have democracy and a free society if the public is always transfixed by lies and meaningless distractions? Today, it's becoming more and more impossible to discern truth from fiction online. The propaganda, the misinformation and disinformation through which we navigate every day pays a toll on us. Even if we think we're smart enough to tell the difference, even if we think we're smart enough to always know which is real and which is fake, it still affects us. No matter how diligent we are, no matter how intelligent we are, it will always have a hold on us. We have to unplug.